yesterday. We had 3 incredible shows yesterday, all very different. The first one was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty lit. It was good though. I mean, you got to have a diversity.
I think I might have caught a little bit of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of screaming. But we're brothers in arms. It's all good. Then we had this lady from Australia that was on last night. She was incredible, talking about the womb and her connection to the womb, and she's a womb healer or something to that effect.
Yeah,
but it was really interesting.
Coming up lately.
Yeah, it was really interesting what she had to say, because basically I experienced it the night before. I was like, okay, you know.
Mum and I were talking about that. Yeah, the day before as well.
Were you really?
Yeah.
And then the interesting thing too is Omani Naji was on the first show today before Franco, and he said the same thing she said. Which was basically, and he's talking energy, energy, not necessarily the physical incarnation, or like, not that it's 100% masculine energies, men, and physical, is women. But he said what she said, which was, in this realm, in this space, the feminine wakes up the masculine. Period.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I know. I mean, I got it. And I just heard it the night before from this incredible lady, Tashini. But it's interesting how these things are, like you were talking about it a day or two ago, and she comes on. I experienced it a day or two ago. She comes on and says it, and which is basically the same thing Morgan says, but it was just in a different way. And then he gets on this morning and he's talking about it. So there's something about the womb,
Yeah, there definitely is. I was going to talk about it a little bit too, if it came up in conversation.
It just did, and we got 49 plus people in the house, so I guess we're ready to roll. So let's talk about the womb.
Yeah. So, as we all know, the womb is our creative center. But more so than that, it goes back to when we started, when we were kind of not so physicalized. The women, because we were very a feminine energy, right? It was very feminine in the way that women have the ability to really feel and imagine and bring into being what they are feeling and experiencing. So it's sort of what's coming online now is that ability to actually feel whatever it is that is in your surroundings, be it nature or whatever it is that you're feeling, and you take it into your body, all of it, and then you express it, you move with it, you dance with it, and you bring it through that womb and birth this new essence of what it is that you've just experienced in your own. Imagination comes in with it as well. And that's how we were birthing new creations, if you like, on this planet, based on what that energy was inspiring within us. So when we get together in sacred partnership, you can imagine how she takes all of you in to her, and what comes about that dance that you have together, that inspiration, and what that actually births, and how that transforms not only what the new creation is, but the man himself into feeling that imaginative, creative center that is very rooted deep within the feminine.
Yeah.
And the masculine later on would be more interested in how she brought about those forms, the actual technical details, the shapes of them, what sort of shape it formed, because things do have shapes, which is something else that I was going to talk about as well. the geometry of things. And then they started to actually map things, and that's where things started to get a little bit crazy later on. So not that there's anything
We're jumping in deep, we're jumping into the deep waters right away.
well,
we're not in
that's just what
we're
happens,
not in the
isn't it?
kiddie pool. No, this is good. This is because I'm getting all kinds of revelation just through what you're saying. She was talking about what you're talking about. She was talking about how Tashini, I'm talking about this lady Tashini that was on yesterday, how, and again, this will be a literal explanation, but it's really an energetic, right? It's really energetic. And she was saying that when the masculine enters the womb, that it always hits the wall, you know, the back, but that at some point, if he's aligned with her, and again, we're talking energy, which we do duplicate, that he enters the darkness, the blackness, the I guess like the holy darkness, and that in that moment, and this is what she was talking about, even in her physical experience, which I could totally relate to because I had just gone through this again, how that place, I guess I'm using my own words now, but this is what she was saying, that in that place is everything, right? And that she basically, when she's matched, she then shares everything to him.
Yeah.
And then that dance you're talking about takes on a whole nother level.
And that place in the womb before it opens, because a lot of women now are carrying that frequency of our original nature, that beautiful gold frequency. And so what happens is, when it's the same with purity, so you feel within you the purity of that, the man, if he's pure of the potential, right? The pure potential of his frequency and what is going to be created out of the union. And it must be pure. So as she opens up in her, she feels, yes, this is purity. And then you enter that space of pure potential, where everything is birthed from that central point of pure potential. So yeah, it's sort of relevant to everything.
Mm-hmm.
The womb is where it's at, and to enter that sacred space. So that sacred space of the womb, as we became more and more physicalized, was really watered down, and we started getting into really distorted creations from that, because they weren't based in that purity that we originally were, you know, just beautiful divine sparks experiencing and expressing these frequencies and formations that weren't so solid yet, you know.
Yeah.
So having that ability now, and really feeling that the essence of what we're talking about, it's sort of, you feel it in your body more so than you understand.
Yeah.
It's like it's just like this ability that awakens within you. And it's how we used to originally see in our own, so we have our own sacred geometry, and you know, we've talked before about sources, you know, at in the beginning everything is one, well, and then different sources and splitting off, doing all sorts of new things, right? So our source, the humanity that is here now, our divine sacred geometry, if you like, is very different to, let's say, the source overlay that is here right now, in the way that it connects with each other. So our ability to see those of us that have sight, and to really feel. It's really that we're just connected so deeply with that sacred geometry that we see beyond the distorted geometry of what is physicalized. Because even in nature, there's some geometry that isn't that geometry that's part of us. And some of us can see through it, and others are more trained, if you like, just to see the other geometry, which feels and appears very real. But to those of us who are very in touch with our own geometry and can see through it, you see clearly that there are two different worlds here. And perfect time to have this conversation, because we're moving right into that crux, and more people will begin to see reality for what it really is here. As the other one moves out, the more of us that start to get in touch with our own sacred geometry, if you like.
Yeah. I could, I was talking to Morgan. Well, we talk about this all the time, right? I told her about a week ago. I can see now and sense that the sacred sexuality, which isn't an act. I mean, sacred sexuality, in other words, again, is a frequency. But I can see how it is the core, like the core. I just speak in my own terms. So my sacred sexuality is the core of my existence. So now I have an opportunity to experience it in the physical. And if I just look at, any number of intimate encounters we've had, which again is not necessarily an act. In fact, it's much more than that. So even like last night, and as you're talking about sacred geometry, being in intimacy where there's no expectation. And if I get direct, no thought of my penis, no thought of ejaculation, no thought of having to perform. These are all taking on higher levels of reality. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's just the way I'm experiencing it. And what I'm finding is that her, as she represents the feminine, my feminine, her feminine, the world's universal feminine, there are portals all over her. And I can just tell you, and I hope this isn't getting too personal, well, she'll probably be okay with it, but to actually have an episode where nothing, for the most part, nothing normally done is done. You would think, for instance, that the primary erogenous zones are going to be, let's say, the yoni and the breast, okay? But all over this landscape, this copy of the universal, are all these other dimensions and portals, and they can be anywhere. And it's not even about where you touch. It's about that alignment with her, which is with yourself, and what that does to any touch as you bring in the frequency of touch. And to me, that's this geometry, as I'm listening to you, that you're talking about, because I'm seeing things I've never seen before, but at the same time, I remember them, right?
Yeah. Yes, we do. We remember them deeply, and because they're just part of us. They are us, and it's our nature to feel them, recognize them, and open portals, and do all of that kind of thing. So,
and it seems like it's really amped up again. We've probably said that to each other since we started doing shows 2 years ago, but it's like the information. Well, it's like the information's waiting. I'm here, just come find me, kind of thing, right? And then the whole thing about what Tashini was talking about, what you're talking about, and even Omani this morning, was this, in an energetic sense, the masculine aligning with the feminine to get that nurturing or that knowledge and that expansion that in this incarnation seems to be playing out for the most part, women like you or like Morgan having that knowing and carrying that sacred wisdom, and then that what she described yesterday is this is what wakes the masculine up. It's, I guess, and I talked about this a little bit to Franco, how in the last, I think it was Omani actually, in the last 10 or 12 days, I've had these experiences with my own feminine within me that's been a little bit freaky. It's like I'm looking down thinking, okay, did I transform physically? I mean, and I know that's kind of a joke, but it's not a physical thing. It's an essence. It's like a becoming, right? And I'm having to, like, proverbially, figuratively speaking, look at myself and go, have I morphed? But I guess in some way, energetically, I actually feel, as my friend Bruce says, I am only half a man. Yeah. And half of feminine, half a woman. Yeah. It freaked me out a little bit,
Yeah. It's beautiful that feminine, she brings, it sounds funny, but she brings the outside in, and then he grounds it and fills in the form. And that's how you get the form in here, in this realm. So it's a beautiful balance between, so to feel that within you. You can often feel those subtle changes when you're really grounding something down. You'll go into the more masculine side of you, can feel the shift. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm in my masculine energy. I'm really bringing this down and grounding it, And when you're in that feminine energy, you can, if you're away with it and it's not grounding, then you're sort of always out there, things are culminating and you could be trying to bring them in, but you're just in those realms before manifestation constantly,
Yeah.
So same with information, bringing it in, and that realm has opened up because of how much has collapsed and been dismantled, since, like, I don't know if you remember the energy of 2015, Todd, but
that's when I met her.
Probably the biggest year ever that I've experienced, apart from certain bits of last year and this year, but that one stuck out because it was like everything collapsed, but it collapsed energetically. It was like every time I felt into it and I could see it, it was already here, but it hadn't been brought in, if you like, through the womb and grounded here. Right. But it had already happened. So 8 years later, here it is, just sitting right here, and everything that was part of that, the realms like the astral plane, the death realms, and all that collapsed, changed so much, and the pulling apart of all that reality and what that brought has now pushed our natural abilities to a stage where all this information, there's no gap in between pulling it down. You don't have to get through a whole load of geometry and codes that are distorted. It's just all here for all of us to pull in and bring in through us, as us. That sounds funny, but it's all there. So it's speeding and culminating at a rate of knots. And just looking at the frequency until April, we're just really, we're on a speeding train now.
Yeah.
And it's
does it feel like the energy of childbirth? And the reason I asked that is because when I was talking to Franco, he said April, May, June, there was going to be, like, each month, huge elevation, which also means a lot of other things, like huge deconstruction or really loudness in terms of what's not real, that's in our face, getting us to, to become aware of it and integrate and get past it. But I said to him and a couple others, I feel like that for sure, because I'm not really, that's not really my bailiwick, is to say, oh, this is what's happening. But to me, and we felt this way before. I know all of us, where you feel like you're getting prepared for something.
Yeah.
Like, and it feels like when he said this about the intel that he shared with us for April, May, and June, it really felt to me like coming out, like, almost like a baby coming out, and you start to smell and see and walk and talk and all that. I don't know if that made any sense.
It has a lot to do with that, with the geometry as well, and just starting to see, you could call it the veils,
Mm-hmm.
And how they are dropping. But we're sort of just scratching the surface, but we're in for more intensity, extremes and all that kind of thing.
Yay.
I just realized that when I was talking about 2015, I said 8 years ago. So 2023 has really been coming into my mind, because it wasn't 8 years ago. 2015 to 2021 is 6 years. So
Mm-hmm.
2023. I usually don't get, these sort of dates, because it's too fluid now. It's way too fluid. Each day changes.
Right.
But that one is still staying. So 2023 is like.
What does that feel like to you? Like the completion of. Go ahead.
It's like an epicness,
Yeah.
a freshness that is just, all the culmination of everything that we talk about. And we'll see in these next few months that the beginning of that acceleration because there's a lot of, a lot of people that are really interested in what's been hidden.
Yeah.
But if you actually know, and you're not grounded, and you're not in your center, or you haven't been in your body, if you like, really in your body, aware of what's going on, it causes such a disruption, the frequency of that it really is too shocking to be in the body.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that will come that are, we will flow fine with, because we're getting the support. We're bringing the support as we need it. We won't ever get anything that we can't ride. However, that sounds funny. There is a whole other aspect, or collective consciousness, that isn't aligned with the raising of the frequency back to the original, the pure. So for them, it'll be a different story, and that's how we get the whole split and the whole spiraling out of something else. But I think I got a bit lost in what I was trying to say. It's like too many pictures.
Yeah, that's one thing Franco was talking about. Franco was talking about it on the previous show. He said you might have noticed recently, because we've all talked about memory from time to time, but he said you might have noticed recently that your memory is very, fragmented. Like, and I said, yeah, I just went through that like an hour before I got on the show with him. But what you were saying, there's a couple of things that I've been exposed to that align with what you're saying. Now, one of them happened way back in like late 2017, and somebody put out a post, and then I saw some other ones do it, and then I noticed it, which is anytime there is a collection of 2 and 1s, like what we just went through, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and it's 2021, and it's the second month of the year, that it's very significant. And I remember reading this post in late 2017, and they were saying basically that, I'm not really totally clear on what it means, but just kind of be aware, because you're going to see that those are going to be kind of like markers. So if you look at the years only, you got 2020, which is twos, and then 2021, and then 2022. Now, so I look at that, and 2023, that what you're saying, it resonates. And then the other thing I would say too is that, even going back to Franco again, right before the election, he kind of gave an update, and he was saying basically that whatever choice we take on the election, that we all take, in a period of about 2 to 3 years, we'll be on the other side of it, because it's going to end up at the same place, which would put us at 2023. And to me, it feels like whatever you said, however you described it, because I can't beat it, but like there's this epic epoch begins or something.
Yeah, it's sort of, it definitely stands out right now as that moment. And the way that things are traveling, the way that things are flowing daily. Some days I feel like you can feel the timeline that we're on collectively, and we're having a hard time. And then by the afternoon, we've switched completely again.
Mm-hmm.
The energy with the choices that we're making in every single minute are amplified like nothing ever, has been, and they will continue to do so. And, I'm one for harping on about our spontaneous responses to the moment, because that's all we have.
Yeah.
And that's all we're going to have, more and more and more.
Yeah.
And so,
that's a really good point. I just want to go back on that real quick, because there is a difference. Because the other thing I'm noticing too, and we talked about it on the previous show, and Morgan and I have been talking about it, and some other people, has been our second nature response to things as we leave codependency and go into, right. And because like if somebody makes an overture to us, immediately there's this imbalance, or at least in the perception of the old way. Oh, I've got to do something to make this equal, So there's a difference between that second nature that's really been a byproduct of our programming versus in the same frame of time, a spontaneous reaction, which is that gut, that feeling, that intuitiveness. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
In the moment. So that'll be learning to cultivate that is everything, because that is our, one, it's our nature, and two, it's the most powerful fallback tool we have.
Yeah.
Going into 2023, I reckon.
Yeah.
And so leading up until April feels escalating, and then a shift in a definite direction of more dismantling and more, you've just been through one of those events,
Mm-hmm.
more of these sort of things.
Yeah.
And really, the more we see them, the more we feel them, the more we go through them, the easier it is to see,
Mm-hmm.
to feel, and to know.
Yeah, you can't beat experience. In fact, that's the only way to do it. I don't know of another way to do it. You can be taught something and instructed, or even apprentice at something, but what you just said about like that event that we went through in Texas, it was such a multifaceted, energetic gift. Like what we were able to observe in others, what we were able to observe in ourselves and each other, and even being in a state and going, wow, we're in the middle of this fucking storm. There's no water in this city of 400,000 people, and we're actually okay. And not only that, but you could see the energy of okay with a lot of people that we ran into, just going to the store, the convenience store, or whatever. So that was very interesting.
Yeah. And going with what is, you
Yeah.
know, moment to moment, because panic's not going to do anything.
No.
Worry's not going to do anything.
Mm-mm.
And even, you know, even knowing what it is or what it was, or not knowing what it was and what it is, doesn't change anything really. It's how you go through it.
Yeah.
And so coming into those, when we have more of those experiences, and I guess what I'm talking about is that geometry that isn't our own, as we see more of these things and we feel it and notice it and we go through it, our abilities to actually dismantle and break apart in the moment are coming online more and more. So the more you're exposed to the difference in the feeling of it,
Yeah.
the frequency difference in it is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because in that situation, there is kind of a confrontation with the program of death, right? Because you're in a situation, you're in a city with 400,000 people and there's no water, period.
Mm.
And there was no preparation because it wasn't like a hurricane. That's a hurricane area. I grew up there. And so your hurricane's coming, everybody gets ready, but that's not how this went down. So you have this presentation of the of facing the program of death, and then I guess what I'm describing and what you made me kind of think of, even at a more scaled up level, is that you go, hey, we're not just okay in the middle of this storm. We're actually okay with whatever happens, and
Exactly.
that's a really, really powerful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
Moving into that knowing. And, when the death realm, if you like, that it was like a trap, a loop, has gone. So feel into that
yeah,
and how it feels in your body, because that can dismantle that program that's only running because we're keeping it running. It's actually gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's it must be something you said, because my root just had a ball of energy go right up into my heart. But it reminds me of when I first woke up, like a lot of us, or some of us, my first experiences were souls that had transitioned and they would come see me, basically. And when I was a kid in my hometown where we were at when that storm happened, I was probably 8, and we had a couple of families with lots of kids that the parents grew up with my parents, and so we would do stuff every weekend. I have an older brother. He's like 3 years older than me. Well, there was an oldest son in one of the families that was in between us. So he was probably 9 or 10, and he transitioned in a really bad car accident. And so I woke up 10 years ago, and his mother, who passed at 44 years old, who was also very close to our family, came to me with him. And she took me back to after he had transitioned. She had come over to the house for Easter, and she said, "Do you remember this?" And in that moment, of course, I was back there and I remembered everything. And here I am, like, 8 years old, but it's all soul. And she said, she came in and she said, "Oh, every time I look at you, I think of him." And, she was just heartbroken. And she said, "Do you remember what you told me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess, and there is no death." And she had come to tell me that I was right. And so, like, when you said that, I remembered, not so much for myself, but I remembered getting that delivered from her, and how powerful that was. Like I could see her soul, I guess, liberate or something, or freed up from that belief system. Yeah,
Yeah.
it reminded me of
Incredible. It's and once again, we're choosing what we're doing with this information, once the knowing and the integration of that fully comes into everybody, which is happening quicker and quicker because we're so connected in ways that we haven't been able to reach before. The choices that we make with what we're going to do with that for the future now, whatever, are incredible, because there's many of us, and you can feel it, that do love being here, that remember the innocence and the absolute beauty and joy that was before. And now that we have become more physicalized and we are aware of anything that's not pure, and what we can do with that and experience, and instead of having to transition in and out of a body, you can stay in this space while you're also, where do you want to concentrate? But the possibility is here to be firmly rooted here at the center, remembering that we are multi-dimensional, but the central point can be wherever.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. That's exactly what we're doing, in my opinion. That's why, we get so caught up in, and I do too, not so much, as the days go by, it's less, but I mean, the narratives and the injustices, or whatever you take your pick, right? And I just keep getting, no, none of y'all know the extent of the distortion that can or will occur. But by the same token, none of y'all know the extent of your power, of your skills and abilities and higher sensitivities, and the way I always take that in when I say, I don't know, do I say it to myself or it's said to me? I kind of feel it and I go, wow, like in dream state, like I'm going to be able to do whatever the hell I want to do, but I'm in a physical body, right? I mean, that's I think that, to me, for me anyway, is the biggest hurdle. It may be the final hurdle, accepting that I am that, not to mention everything along the way, but that to me is the biggest domino. And on that note, I didn't get to ask Franco this, but of course the lucid dream thing has been increasing. A lot of people have talked about it, the clarity. I mean, it's not for everybody, it's not happening, but I've seen enough of it to see and certainly experience that it's like, especially this past couple of weeks, has just been like, I can't tell you what I've been doing, but I have been very, very busy. I know Morgan's been very, very busy, and I'm talking about when we're in dream state, in our multidimensionality. And I got to believe that we're all hustling out there. Are you? Does that sound like anything that resonates with you? I mean, are you feeling like we're very active in our, what we would call our sleep state?
For me, what's been happening in my sleep state is the returning to, I lost the ability when I was in my teens, but I always, before I go to sleep, I could dream about whatever I wanted to, and in my dreams do whatever I wanted to. And so that ability has come back. And so it won't happen every night, but just having the ability back is so awesome. It is so much fun, because the night that it first happened to me, I remembered the feeling in my body that I had. It's a certain feeling. It's almost like a setting that I would get into before I'd go to sleep, and I would carry that setting all the way through. And it's just fun, because you can do whatever you like, right? And change characters and change what, I used to fly around a lot because I love flying and just experiencing so many different things all at once. And you're just like a superhero, right? It's so
That's exactly what that's exactly how I felt when I got up this morning, or, because I didn't go, okay, what happened? Literally show it to me, because that doesn't work for me. But so you get that feeling, right? And I felt I mean, I on the surface, if you'd have seen me, I mean, Morgan, my hair was out like this, and I was like walking, but my my spirit, my essence, my soul was very much awake, and that's what I felt like. I felt like a superhero. I felt like, I did. I literally, and I thought to myself, are we all superheroes? I mean, or are we all
We are.
Justice League?
Yeah. And
Oh,
it comes back to those that feeling,
hmm.
that feeling state, and you couldn't tell people what it is, but you can share the frequency of what it is.
Yeah.
You couldn't explain the state because it is a definite feeling, and something happens within your body before you do it. It's not a meditation, and it's not anything that you have to consciously do. It's just a remembering of a feeling in your body that you put yourself into, and then it happens. And this kind of understanding, knowing, is where we're at. So it's like something we get used to all the time.
Yeah.
And especially for a lot of the grounded feminine energy will know that, it understand what I'm saying is because it's all about feeling rather than conveying through.
Exactly.
Can share it through the frequency, and maybe one day if we need to, but we don't, we could put a series of what it is, but we don't need to do that. And that is our superpower too, the ability to move with what is in that moment, knowing, intimately connected, that we don't have to map it out, that we don't have to have technology to do anything. It's just how we are.
It's feeling in the moment. Like even what you were talking about with the death realm, death programming. There used to be that narrative that people would put out about the light. Just remember, when you transition, don't go to the light because it's a soul loop, right? When in reality, it's actually like what you were saying when you explained it. It's actually in the present moment, facing that, and integrating it, or whatever you do, to neutralize it, to put it in its proper place with everything else in oneness or whatever. But that to me has been probably the biggest. If I had to, like, if somebody said to me, like my kid, or hey dad, how would you suggest I do this or do that, I would say, look, man, at this point, it's all how you feel.
Absolutely.
Like
It's always going to be.
Yeah, you just know stuff, and there's no explanation for it, and I can't convince you, and you can't convince me. It's just, I just know. And I got that from your sister over here, because, I'd often say, well, let's do this and let's do that. And she'd say, I'm feeling it, but I'm not, it's not like, she says I feel it in my entire body. Then I started to get that. I'd be like, okay, no matter what it looks like, no matter what my human needs are, no matter what my desire, my want is, like, give me, some food, or give me a shelter. Back in the day when I was traveling, there would be a feeling where you just know, no matter how good it looks, you don't do it, or you do it, depending. It's a feeling. To me, that's the number one thing for me now at this point.
Yeah.
Which I guess means my feminines come online.
Yeah, and in the beginning we wouldn't take in things that didn't feel good. We wouldn't express things that didn't feel good to express. We didn't bring in things like that until we started mingling with other collectives and that sort of thing. So it's just, you take into you what feels good. Always. And it's our nature to take everything into us, because we're that pure innocence, to take everything inside, and to it feels awful when you take something inside and then you express that to the body,
Right, and right away.
Yeah.
That's one reason I know, and I'm just going to say this, just because, like, when you talked about, you were just talking about, your ability that's reemerged to set up your dreams, right? I listened to that, and because I know the energy that you carry, or Morgan carries, and many feminine, primarily feminine around the world that I've engaged. That because y'all bring in the possibilities first, right? The sacred wisdom first, and you anchor it. So that's telling me what's coming, like what you were telling me a minute ago. And I forgot what story I was going to relate to that, but I know what it was. So it's like it has to do with the feminine, right? The way mine has come into play now. Again, here we go with feeling, because I'm, most of the time it happens when I'm, we go to bed at night, we put our hands together and see what happens, right? But it's been freaky at times, like what's coming in. But the one thing, like I'll freak out because my ego will go, okay, wait a minute. Are you wearing a G-string, or you need a bra, or, but no, seriously, it'll be like, cause they're feminine feelings. Right. And so I'm like, whoa, am I losing my mind? Whatever the case is. But the one thing that keeps me in line is my body, which is the core of my feeling. And what I've noticed is that there's certain sensations and discomfort, mostly related to nerves and maybe tendons and muscles. They've gone away. And in place of that, there's this flow. And
Yes,
it's
flow.
almost unnatural.
Yeah.
Like one night I crawled, literally, she was already asleep. And because whatever happened that night, I literally crawled to the bathroom and laid on the bathroom floor, totally no equilibrium. Felt like I was going to die. And I used to have seizures. I think I told you I had probably 150, 200 seizures from 15 to 50. So it was very much the same feeling, the mouth watering, you're going to vomit. And I just heard, and it was strictly a feminine voice, like a mother voice, just let go. And I mean, let go as in let your bowels go, let your urinary tract go, let your throw up go. I mean, I literally felt like I was dying. But as soon as I did that, my body went, you're ready to go back to bed. You're good. So there's definitely a relation for me anyway to, I think it's more of a confidence in respecting the intel my body gives me, which is based on feeling.
Yeah. It's all about the body. We're here in the body, and it all runs through the body.
Yeah.
We do. And coming back to a dream state, death state, no separation.
Mm-hmm.
It's choices.
Yeah. That you just hit me with another one now, because I remember quite a few lucid dreams, some more than others, particularly during periods of where certain energies were coming up, where the dream ends when I die, right? Like I remember one time I was, I think I was incapacitated or something. A friend of mine took me to the woods, and I know it sounds horrible, but I asked him to blow my head off. And I remember when it happened, the coldness of it, but it was all a dream, right?
Yeah.
There was no death in it, right? I mean, I really get what you're saying.
Yeah. And then the choice to come back here.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's that all access pass that we've been waiting for, to know that we have that within us. For me, that was a cool thing to integrate, that all access pass. And the freedom that brings to your expressions and to the things that come in. The knowledge, the integrations, everything. It's just like, run it through your body. This feels really good, and it just increases the flow. and it just builds. It's like we're just at an incredible stage, you know, and it just keeps building, and it won't stop. It won't stop building because we're bringing it, you know.
It's I mean, to me, the biggest indicator, because everything is, you know, as Morgan says, a copy is a copy is a copy. But again, going back to my sexual power and sexuality, if I use that as a microcosm, but I also feel it's the core of what I put out there, and I'm not talking about acts and all that, you know what I mean? But the whole thing is like the toughest programming for me to neutralize or put in its proper place in oneness has been the sexual programming, you know, the performance and all the things that are expected, you know. But it's just been, and I'm probably going to end up being like the number one, at least attempt, you know, whatever you call it, you know, just a person that's really wants to speak about this and get this message, particularly to men, because it's been so freaking liberating for me. And I'm just on the very edge of this. I'm just jumping into this. But because, you know, I could go into a sacred sexual episode with Morgan, and there's been an evolution like everything else on our journeys. And I'm kind of like suppressing desire, you know, but going back to what you said about, you know, experience, actually to experience that this thing like last night, you know, like it was mind blowing, but it was just two people basically holding each other, you know, but there was so much more to it, but it was what it was because my programming had been removed, right? Really hard, in-depth programming, which for me anyway, and I guess everybody would be different, as a result of that, unleashed or reawoke or brought in, recoded or whatever, the feminine part of me that's brought a higher level of balance. So I just think that, you know, for me, as the days have gone on, and maybe I just have a different trip because I lived a pretty wild, full life, but I got to believe that the programming for I don't know, for me, it's like the feminine energy, you know, as a collective through individuals like yourself has got us to a certain point, and you can call it just the feminine energy period without take all the people out of it. And it's put this pressure on the masculine, not bad pressure, but like it's opened its eyes. And it's kind of like, okay, well, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. Let's try this. And
Yeah,
I've done it. I'm trying it, and I'm like mind blown, totally mind blown.
yeah.
I don't even think
Let's
about
do
it.
deep connection first.
Yeah,
You know, let's do that, and then let's talk about the creative energy of orgasm. You know, when we've got the deep connection, then we can move on to what that energy is. It's absolutely incredible.
yeah,
Highly potent, and you don't that's something that is, it sits in the center once again of that purity.
yeah,
That's, you know, to enter that where it's at, the frequency where it's at. Yeah, you've got to have that connectedness first, that pure connection.
yeah, yes.
Yeah. So it was kind of back to front, kind of skew if, you know, and just not where it's going. Not that there was anything ever wrong with, you know, what we were all doing
Well, we did
in
what
the
we
day, but and you know, and some people still do, but it's the as the frequency, as you raise your own frequency and align with who you are, um, it to run it through the body at certain times, it's not enough, and you feel almost starved because it's empty.
Yeah, true. It's kind of like, I'll just speak from my own experience. Not that it's a big, not that well, it doesn't matter, but like masturbation. or even like just a sexual encounter back in the day, when as soon as as soon as you have the ejaculation, for the most part, and I mean literally and figuratively, it's over.
Mm.
It's a very finite kind of thing, but again, we're talking about energy, and this thing that's happening to me, it's not like come in and just stayed. It like comes in and gives me a peace. Like
Yeah.
I'll be walking around, and all of a sudden my kundalini will just shoot up. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap,
Yeah.
and she's around. I'm looking at her. I mean, not, but I'm like, I wanted this, I wanted that, but I can feel it coming online. And to me, the closest thing I can equate it to would be when I was on the bathroom floor or when I was about to have a seizure. Now, when I had a seizure, I would resist, right? Or I would attach, whatever, it's one and the same. But like on the bathroom floor, I just surrendered, beyond surrender, right? And then boom, you're done. And so it's very much like that. I get this tingling sensation, kundalini, whatever you want to call it, and it just fills all my cells. And I just have noticed that it's picking up, and I don't always know when it's going to come, and
No.
but to me, it's a really good sign, kind of like what you were talking about earlier about your dream state thing, about what's coming.
Yeah. It is a feeling. And for
Yeah.
me, the creativity that comes from that is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's something that I couldn't not do, because it builds up to a point where I feel like my body will explode if I
Mm-hmm.
don't get creative.
Yes. Thank you.
I need to bring through what it is my body's feeling, put
This,
out. You said it, right?
it's so funny. It's so funny because I didn't know this. There's a lot of things I don't know. Morgan tells me, right? And so she was telling me about how I've only had like 2 dogs in my life, and I didn't have them very long. She said if a dog doesn't basically have sex, I guess they have these glands that build up, and you have to, what do you call it? You have to express them. I guess like nipples or something. And she's telling me, I'm like, oh my God, that's gross. But then I thought to myself, because everything's code, right? That's presented to you. I thought that's how I feel, what you're just talking about. And of course, the human part goes, well, I guess I better go take care of business, or coerce her, or cajole her into the bedroom. But it has been a creative. There's been a link that I was aware of that, hey, get down, and like yesterday, we got back on, did 3 shows. I popped in on one myself, and yeah, so it really got things flowing, which is probably why we had such an amazing experience last night. And the way today's gone, tonight will be even better. But yeah, I feel the energy build up. But back in the day, it would be masturbation, or you go have sex. But yeah, like I can feel the difference. The creativity smooths everything out. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
People are funny. People are making funny comments. So I love talking to you, and I feel a lot of good things coming. Morgan and a friend of ours, I think just yesterday, was saying, because she went to visit, and then I said, well, how'd it go? And she said, we were talking how we feel like kids, like before Christmas, and that's what I feel. I feel like that. I feel like that, especially after talking to you and Franco today. Like, some people have said March, some people have said May. And I think that May thing, the end of May thing, which is when the Soulogy Fest is. So,
Yay.
I think we're in for some really provocative, epic is what you said, right? Epic. Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to have to go. People are funny.
We'll create.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go create.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Life is taking on a new meaning every single day. It's incredible. We can't speak it fast enough. But when a person like you realigns with our abilities and our potential before dream state, or a person like me um, rids the blockages of sexual, programming, it's happening to everybody. right? It's there for everybody. It becomes more enhanced. So keep going, everybody. We're badasses, all of us.
Oh,
I love you. I see you.
love you.
You take care.
See you